Testing, testing. There we go. If you all could take a seat, please. We're going to start it right at 6:30. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Rose Street Fire Company for the Township's meeting tonight. I am going to ask you all to stand. We're going to have the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Thank you. You may be seated. Okay, a couple quick safety notes. It's highly likely that while we're here tonight, we will receive a call. If so, you'll hear some of our pagers going off and people getting up and leaving. If you happen to go outside to use the phone, have a smoke, whatever, and you're out there when we get a call, please remain on the sidewalk or on the porch so you do not inhibit our responders from coming in and getting to the trucks. If there's an emergency in this building, once we're notified, I will stop the meeting and I will tell you so. Everybody on this side of the room, to my right, you will exit through the doors you came in. Everybody on this side, you will exit through those doors right there. The front panel, we will follow this group out the front door. Again, we'll put you where we need you, but the important thing is to not be in the way when our responders are coming in. Restrooms are right through that hallway. If you need to use the restroom during the event, they're right down that hallway. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for hosting us this evening. Welcome, everybody. It is a great turnout. We're really excited to see so many community members that are here to listen, learn, ask questions about what is going on in the township. So tonight we're bringing all of you together because in 2019, we did a community comprehensive plan that really showed us the needs that you had and want and outlined what we want to maintain and how we want to move forward as a township together. And over the course of that time, we've had a pandemic and lots of things have happened to our healthcare system, to our infrastructure. And so as we are starting to go into this budget season, we wanted to build on your wants and your needs and also what we see happening across our budget season. So tonight, oh, sorry, there's no questions or answers right now. Sure. I'm Kristen Rexing, and I'm Township Counselor in District 3. Sorry, I'm trying to like stay out of the spotlight. I am just your MC this evening. So anyway, we wanted to really bring together all of your needs and have you hear what is happening in the township and let you know that as we come into this budget season, we're thinking comprehensively. So we've brought together everybody within our township, all of our different departments around public safety, around public works, around parks. And we've also brought together different contractors we work with and experts to bring to you a really data informed discussion to guide us through this plan and through our budgeting season. So, a few things that we wanted to talk about before we get started. One, we have some people live streaming, right? We've got about 25 people live streaming. If you are on the live stream, you are able to put questions into a form that's online that you can find, right? It's right on our website. So you can go and put questions there through July 31st. We'll put all of those together and build an FAQ up on our website. So keep an eye out for that. Again, that's open through July 31st. This evening, we're also taking public comment. So we're going to ask you at the when we do public comment to come up to the microphone. You'll have 3 minutes to talk. That way we can get through as many questions as possible. So please, again, while you're here, you'll come up just like any other public forum, state your name, your address. You'll have 3 minutes, and then we'll try to get through everyone as efficiently and politely as possible. So again, we really hope, you are our neighbors. These are all of our amazing colleagues and people who work for us in the township. So please be respectful with your comments and we'll get through to all of you. So I will pass the microphone off to our interim township manager, David Unkovic. He's going to guide us through a presentation and then a discussion with our panelists, and then we'll get to our public Q&A.
Thank you, Kristen. Welcome, everyone. My name's Dave Unkovic. I'm the interim township manager. So I started on July 1, and I will be gone probably at some point in August. April 1. No, I didn't start July 1. April 1, sorry. So I'll be gone sometime in August. The council's in the process of searching for a permanent manager, which is coming along really well. So these are the three main topics of investment that we're going to talk about tonight: public safety, infrastructure, and community projects and programs. First, let me introduce the table up here. So we have people that really run the different aspects of the township and the associated entities. So first is Ryan Hottenstein from FSL Public Finance in Reading, PA. He was hired by the council as a consultant to help put together a lot of the analysis that's in the slides that you're going to see tonight. Beside him is our chief of police, Dave Montella, and then Scott Price, who's head of the EMS out of Media Fire Company, and then Mike Cosgrove, who's the fire chief here at the fire company, and with him Jim Henry, who's president of the fire company. Dave Peischer, who's the roadmaster, he's in charge of the Public Works Department at the township. Beside him, J.P. Kelly, who's the township engineer and code enforcement officer. And then finally, Jim Gentile at Lynn Architects, which handles zoning and inspections. He works for Bob Lynn down the street. We're going to have a presentation. Ryan's going to lead off and sort of look backwards in terms of what the finances have been over the last 5 years of the township and do some analysis of that. The middle portion will be a description of the departments, and I'll sort of lead off regarding these descriptions, and then I'll ask questions of the department heads going right down the road from the chief all the way down to Jeff. And then after that, Ryan's going to do some projections based on the needs of the township and the needs of the various departments, what it looks like going forward for budgeting and financial analysis for the township. So that's sort of the three-part. You have the, oh, why don't you move up? Okay, so in more words, that's all described here, but that's basically what we're doing. So I'm going to turn it over to Ryan.
All right, thank you very much. As Dave mentioned, my name is Ryan Hottenstein. I am with FSL Public Finance and have been engaged to help the township take a look at its past financial history, but also look at what the needs are for the township moving forward, both from an employment and operations standpoint, but also from a capital project standpoint as well, the investments that's wanted within the community. As part of this process, we reviewed financial and audited statements for over the last 5 years, as well as your comprehensive plan. We spoke to everyone that's up here to talk about their needs, things that they need in order to accomplish their objectives from the services that they provide to you, the citizens. and said, what does that look like moving forward? But one of the things that we want to do when we start off in one of these engagements straight away is take a look at what has happened historically. And when we look at the past 5 years, the township has experienced 3 years of annual surpluses, but in 2019 and 2020 actually ran 2 years of fund deficits. So for those 2 years in 2019 and 2020, you had revenues which were short of the expenses that you incurred. This meant that this township actually had to spend its fund balance, the cash and retained earnings it had on hand, in order to meet the operational demands of the township. Now, a couple of things happened in 2020 to 2021 that made that change. One of those was a reassessment countywide in Delaware County. So during that reassessment, obviously all the properties throughout the county were reassessed. A new base was established. The millage rate charge actually went down, but there was a slight increase in collections, as well as we started turning out and coming away from COVID. So we started seeing COVID, and one thing in particular as well, you see this large spike here in the revenues in 2021. Another piece that was really important there was a recovery in housing sales. You remember interest rates were incredibly low, and the housing market was booming. As you can see, one of the things I want to point out is you actually hit a low when you talk about retained earnings and fund balance in 2020 of only about $200,000. Since then, the township has done a great job of building that back up, and currently at the end of 2023 sits at about $1.6 million. When we take a look at both the revenue side and the expenses side, one thing we want to look at first off is that revenue house, because that's the part that we know for sure what's going to come in, how does that look, and what we have to do is try to size the expenses so that it meets the revenues that are coming in. When you look at a municipality, and Upper Providence being exactly like most of them, by far and away the largest source of revenue is this section right here of taxes. There are a number of other revenue sources for a municipality, but they are very small and de minimis when you compare it to that size of taxes. As you can see, one of the things that I want to point out here in this tax slide here is your taxes. Most municipalities that I will review have a fairly steady tax number. Yours, on the other hand, was up, it was down, it was up, it was down. And that's something that is very concerning to me when I'm looking at a township and their finances, because if I have tax revenues constantly fluctuating, that gives me a lot of concern on how do I maintain a budget that's balanced when I have that type of movement. So taking a further look at that total taxes, in the township, you really have three sources of revenue when you take a look at your taxes. By far and away, the largest source, that blue piece at 75%, is your real estate taxes. This is the amount that you charge, that you pay on your assessed value of properties. And then you also have another piece that is 22% that is result of your real estate transfer tax. Does everybody know what real estate transfer tax is? If not, I'll just quickly say, it is an amount that you pay when a house is sold. So when you buy in, or you buy a home in Upper Providence, you pay 1.5% at closing. That comes to the township. So that's a big number for you. You have $1 million of revenue from that real estate taxes. However, that 22%, like I said, because it's based on real estate transaction, fluctuates greatly when you take a look year over year based on the economy and how real estate is selling in the township. And as you can see, the green line here is that real estate transfer. You were up at about 1.5 million, then it dropped down to 943,000, back up to almost $2 million in 2021, which was great. That helped your fund balance. That turned around that earnings that you were seeing where you were burning it down. But then since then, we see it continue to drop. And this is again just a reflection of the market conditions, and that's the volatility in real estate. That is something that is concerning as well. The one concern that we have when we look at real estate taxes is that there's not a lot of natural growth in real estate taxes. Real estate taxes only grow if a municipality is growing, so it's not built out, it has room to grow, and there's more development, assessments are coming on, or if the council takes action and raises property taxes. Obviously, people are always concerned when it comes to raising property taxes. So that's something that, they do their best to fight against. But because of that, your tax revenue and your revenue in general pretty much remains very flat. There's not a whole lot of natural growth there. Then we say, okay, well, let's go ahead and take a look at the expenses. And when we look at the expenses, like typical, and something that you would expect to see is in a township like Upper Providence, the largest cost center is going to be police. It's a service that is run 24/7, whereas Public Works is not, whereas administration is not. So as such, we would anticipate seeing the largest cost center to be public safety and police. The second largest one is employee benefits. And that just comes down to both the pension costs for the employees of the township as well as healthcare. In the township, there is also retiree healthcare for police officers who have retired that the township's responsible for, and so they have to pay that as well. And so the two largest pieces are that police and then that employee benefits, as well as general government and then public works and streets making up the other largest expenses. But when you take a look at things such as fire or EMS, the amount of money that the township actually contributes to those services is very, very low compared to the others. Again, just a little bit different of a breakdown. You can see between fire, public works, and general administration, not fire, I'm sorry, police, public works, and general administration, about 75% of your expenses annually go to those three services that are provided throughout the township. This is something that when we take a look at that 5-year revenue versus expenses that we kind of talked about in the beginning, but one of the things I want to bring up is what is the benchmark that you're looking for when you talk about the retained earnings and fund balance. And GFOA, which is Government Finance Officers of America, recommend no less than holding 2 months of revenue or expenses in reserves, which comes out to about 17%. This kind of shows where the township has been. In 2019, that dropped down to 1.1. 2020 dropped further to 0.37. 21, you built it up to about 1.7, but you still weren't at that threshold. 2022 and 23, you did break that two-month threshold. However, I would have put a caveat there. That's for normal operations and for a municipality that doesn't so heavily depend on real estate transfer. Because you have such a large revenue source that's so volatile, in this situation, I would be recommending the township hold more than 2 months. They should probably be looking at something closer to 4 when I say, because you could have swings of over $1 million in that. And $1 million on a $7 million budget is a lot. So that's a concern when I'm looking at your finances and saying, hey, this probably isn't where it needs to be. It needs to be higher, or you need to take a look at how you're assessing taxes throughout the township. Here's just some information regarding the statistics, both on income and how it relates to the fiscal health within the township. When we take a look at the income levels at the township, actually, the income level as far as compared to the average throughout the country is very, very high. You are actually at about 181% above the resident income throughout the United States. That would, from a standpoint of a rating agencies, when we take a look at credit criteria, that puts you in the AAA category. So that would give you a rating under that major city alone higher than the United States. So the fact that you're at 181% is a great thing. You take a look at the full value per capita, so the amount of money per capita, it's $158,000, that's AA. That's also a very good statistic to have. So you have a lot of wealth in Upper Providence, which is good. The economic growth, unfortunately, that's not just Upper Providence. When we take a look at the area for economic growth, that's the larger metropolitan area. So it's bringing in Philadelphia, it's bringing in Chester, it's bringing all of that. But still, it's a AA. And when we look at the rest on available fund balance, we're at A's, AA. And when you take a look at long-term liabilities ratio, that is actually a AAA level as well. So that's great. One of the things I do want to point out is that the debt within the township is exceedingly low. When you take a look at the amount of debt that's outstanding, the township only has about $500,000 of debt. That is very, very low compared to what most municipalities would have, and a great thing as far as your financial picture. So what does that mean? In general, when you take a look at the revenues and expenses, is that first of all, when you look at some of the positive, is that the financial capacity within the township and your ability to fund future requirements, whether that be capital improvements or future salaries and benefits, is strong. There's a lot of room there. There's an ability for this township to fund those things. You've had financial improvements over the last 3 years, which is great. And that when I take a look at it, the normal allocation of resources is pretty typical. So there's nothing really atypical where I'm saying, boy, they're really spending a lot on X, Y, or Z. That's not normal. Some of the issues that definitely need to be taken a look at to address are, one, that the second largest source of revenue within the township is extraordinarily volatile. Additionally, the one thing that's the flip side of the fact that you don't have a lot of debt, that really kind of shows that there hasn't been a lot of investment back into the capital plant of the township. Roads, parks, sidewalks, a lot of that is needed. And so because of that, yeah, you don't have a lot of debt, but you might need to start borrowing money to get those projects done. And that's something that you can take a look at and address. And then the other piece that we talked a little bit about regarding pension costs when we took a look at those employee benefits is that moving forward, not only do you have a lot of these capital projects that need to get done throughout the township and things that you need, but there are some increases that are coming due to your minimum municipal obligation, which is MMO, which is the amount that's required to contribute into the police pension fund, especially for the COLAs. And with that, I will let Dave go ahead and talk a little bit about the COLA section.
Okay. I'm going to tell the story of the COLA here. So there's a collective bargaining agreement between the Fraternal Order of Police, who represent the policemen, and the township, and that's typical for a municipality. One of the things that the collective bargaining agreement talks about is contributions by the township to the pensions of the police officers. One factor in how much the township pays in to the police pension is a cost of living adjustment, also called a COLA, C-O-L-A. It's basically an inflation factor. So every year, to keep up with inflation, the amounts that are contributed by the township to the police pensions is adjusted for inflation. As you remember, in 2008 and 2009, we had the great mortgage crisis and the Great Recession, and a lot of people were very concerned about their finances, including the township. In 2019, the Township Council decided to stop paying the COLA. I'm sorry. Oh, I'm sorry, 2009, excuse me. The Township Council decided to stop funding the COLA to save money. Unfortunately, that was in violation of the collective bargaining agreement, which requires it. I understand from the FOP that they were not informed that this change had happened. So time went on, and eventually different people sat on council over time until you have the current council. And apparently the subsequent council people weren't aware that this change had been made too. In 2023, there were a number of retirements from the police force, and the FOP was focused on the pension program for the retired officers and noticed that this COLA had not been paid. And when they researched it, went back all the way to 2009. So the FOP came to the Township Council and said, we've got a problem. The council looked at it and agreed that that amount was due and should have been paid. And so there's a makeup that's required. You know, there's an actuary for the pension fund, as there is for all pension funds. And they did a calculation that the amount needed to refund the stuff that wasn't paid over time since 2009 was $2.28 million. Obviously, from the numbers you've seen, the township doesn't have $2.28 million in its pocket or even the ability to put that into a year's budget. So there were negotiations between the FOP and the township on how to handle this obligation. And they basically agreed to do a an annual contribution, which we'll talk about later in this presentation, over a period of 14 years to make up for the COLA that was not paid for 14 years. So I would just say that this COLA problem, which the council's dealing with, was not caused by the police. It was not caused by the retired policemen. It was not caused by the FOP. It was not caused by the council people who are sitting in office now. It was caused way back when, 14 years ago, when that decision was made, that this council and the police are trying to deal with now. So I'll stop there. I just wanted to interject that because at a couple points in the presentation, there'll be mention of the COLA amount that's due. And so that's what we're talking about.
That's great. Thank you, Dave. So moving on, we want to take a look at what the township, when we look at the investments that the township needs from a budgetary perspective, both from personnel, but also from those projects. We talked about the aging municipal infrastructure, so increase new roads, sidewalks, stormwater, sinkholes, park and rec buildings. But also, how does that COLA, the fire and EMS needs, what does that look like and how does that impact the budget moving forward? So the next step in our analysis was say, okay, let's aggregate all those costs. Let's amortize the ones that can be amortized either through a borrowing or also the COLA, which is basically going to be paid off over 14 years, and see what that does to the municipal budget status quo. So all things remaining equal, what does that look like? We take a look at the current capital projects, and the group up here will go through this in detail and talk about the projects they need. But right now, we're looking at about capital projects expense of about $5.8 million if we were to do every single project that is on the list. If you amortize that over 20 years right now at about 4.2% interest, you're looking at about $450,000 a year in a debt service payment to fund about $6 million of projects. When we take a look at the changes, one of the things that when we look at MMO, in addition to the COLA, is the actuarial liability. So when you have a pension plan, there's going to be the amount of money that's in the plan and the anticipated amount that's needed to fund those pensions. The rest of that actuarial liability is the amount that needs to be made up through your MMO payments. Right now, based on the increases in MMO for the police as well as for the rank and file, the regular police officers, next year we're looking at about $323,000 increase in MMO. Also looking at potential increase to the EMS contribution of about $50,000. Right now, when taking a look at the budget, the original budget for 2024 was actually adopted with using $1 million of fund balance. Don't anticipate it being that high, provided we'll still need to see some actuals on that real estate transfer, but the anticipated deficit for 2024 is about $225,000, as well as just natural growth, inflationary growth for power, gasoline, that's those sort of things, looking at about another $217,000. In total, if you were to do everything and pay for all of those, that's looking at about $1.3 million increase in expenses for 2025 over 2024. And again, then we say, well, what does that look like to our budget? Clearly, you cannot maintain the status quo. If you continue to operate with the revenues that you have and you have to increase those expenses, you will very quickly go into a deficit position. You'll have revenues which are far lower than the expenses that are needed. We will get through in this presentation and talk about ways of addressing that. But that is what we're looking at. That is what the township is looking to address this year, moving forward. And as we go forward, we want to explain the projects that we're looking at, but that is the picture that we will have to address, and the township will have to address this budget season in the fall of 2024. So. I did.
Well, we'd like to get through the presentation and take questions at the end. It is. Okay.
Great.
We're going to have the presentation on the website. And even though there are a lot of numbers and words up here, we're going to have appendices on the presentation, which we're not going to go through tonight, which has lots of charts with lots of numbers. So if you want to really delve down into some of the details, you're going to be able to do that later. Okay, so I'm going to go through the various township departments and what's going on there. So first of all, of course, is our great police department. It was established in the 50s. It covers 5.9 square miles, which is a lot of territory. The population, as you know, is between 10 and 11,000, and the number of households is over 4,000 in the township. It's a 24/7 coverage, 3 officers on per shift. There's 1 detective, which is George Moore here, and 1 administrative assistant, Rose Haley, who does a great job. So the estimated cost for the police department in 2024 is about $3.66 million. It's about half of the entire general fund budget, and it's projected to grow to more than $4 million next year. Okay. So going back to the pie chart on the expenses, this is about half of the expenses it shows on the pie chart there. In terms of what things that the police department will need coming up, we have a list here, and we're going to do this for each of the departments. So first of all is a new department building, and the chief will explain in a minute why the police department needs more space, but we're looking at potentially terminating the lease with the district court. The township owns the district court building, which is beside the township building, and leases it to the county so the county can hold the district court there. And that's typical. The county controls the district courts and leases space for their district court services. In this township, that building is owned by the township and leased to the county. But we have the ability, the township has the ability to take back that building next year when the lease is up and move the police department over into that building. And the chief will go through why that's important. So that cost of redoing the district court building and turning it into a police building is $1.125 million. The COLA pension cost, I talked about that earlier. So the annual amount that's agreed to over 14 years is about $250,000 a year. The police, so there are other items which the police really need, which we would want to finance. Police vehicles, about 2 annually, and the first electric vehicle showed up just recently. Radios, computer software, body cameras, and so forth. So these are, important things that for the police department. And so I'll call on the chief and ask him how it would be beneficial for the police department to have the extra space.
Thanks, David. For you out there that do not know me, my name is David Montello. I'm the chief of police here in Upper Providence Township. To answer your question, David, we've needed a new police department for many years now. I can think back in the late 80s and early 90s when I just joined the department. There was 8 guys on patrol and a detective, and we ran between 4 and 6, maybe 7,000 on a busy year calls for service. Since then, our calls for service are between 13,000 and 15,000. So there's been a significant increase in calls for service here in Upper Providence Township. As a result, we had to increase our staffing to meet those needs for calls. And we are now operating with 3 men a shift, a full-time detective assignment, as well as a patrol sergeant. The gold standard in police work is accreditation. And for you that do not know or may not know, accreditation is essentially a certification a department would receive indicating from the state that you meet best policies and practices. Again, it is the gold standard because everybody operates off the same sheet of music. Our policies, our practices, our procedures essentially mirror best practices in accreditation. Where we fail and fail miserably is within our department. We cannot achieve accreditation as our department currently stands. Reason being, our evidence room is way too small and our record storage is insufficient. As I said, we're doing 15,000 calls a year. You can imagine the amount of evidence we take in, not only a daily, monthly, but a yearly basis. When I tell you we're overflowing in our evidence, I mean, we can barely shut the door. We meet the standard, yes, we do meet it, but not for accreditation. The same can be said for the property storage and for our evidence storage as well. We're just bulging at the seams. Additionally, we do not have any areas for officers to take a break, to eat a meal, anything like that. They're sitting in front of their computers eating meals. We do not have an interrogation room or an interview room. So we lack several areas and just the mere space and the condition of our office now. When I tell you, if you ever driven into Wildwood up Route 47, that smell you smell like low tide, that's what our station smells like. Unfortunately, it's horrible. The infrastructure, the plumbing is deplorable. We have insufficient ventilation, particularly in our evidence room. So if there's a significant arrest and the evidence has to stay there for a couple days until it can be taken to court, everybody knows what's in that evidence room. It's horrific. But we have outgrown our footprint. Our goal is to become compliant so we can gain accreditation in a year or two out if we're able to get this new building that has everything and will meet the accreditation standards. That's again, that's our ultimate goal. And to be candid, in addition to the accreditation issues, there's not a lot of cops out there today, and there's not a lot of people lining up to be police officers. We often speak, when I started back in the late 80s, there was 300 people applying for a part-time job, a part-time position. Our last test, we had less than 50. We've been looking for part-time officers for a year now, and we picked up one finally. They're just not beating the doors down, and part of that is they can be very, very selective now where they choose to go. They can say, look at Radnor Township, state-of-the-art facility. They have X, Y, and Z. And if you look at all the townships around us, they're pretty much compliant with that. They have nice facilities. We clearly lack, and it is a big thing when people look and they see, well, look, it's podunk here. I mean, it's a really small department. You know, they lack a lot of things with regards to their facilities. But our biggest thing is dedicated people that we have for the department. They've been in the door. They perform for years, and they have a lot of pride in what they do. So we're very, very fortunate to retain the guys we have now. However, trying to bring guys in now can be a little bit problematic because they do their homework, and they're going to go to forward-thinking departments, larger departments that have the facilities, that have the abilities and things like that. We like to stay up to one technology. We apply for every grant there is. So that's one of the reasons that we really, really need this station. I mean, not only for accreditation, but also for the morale of the men and potential future officers.
Thank you, Chief. Our next department is EMS, and this is run out of the media fire company. Scott Price is here tonight. So it was established in the 1960s. It covers Upper Providence, Nether Providence, Media, and Rose Valley boroughs. It's dispatched under the Delaware County 911 system, and they work hand in hand with local police and fire departments daily. So the services provided are 24/7 coverage, advanced life support, which is very important, which I'll ask Scott about. The largest non-hospital based ALS license in the country. It responds to over 2,500 calls per year. and relies on residents to offset the increasing costs by becoming a subscriber. For all of those services, the township this year is paying $80,000 for EMS. So it's, as you can see on this next slide, it's 1.1% of the total general fund budget. In terms of the needs of the EMS, one is they would like an annual appropriation. As I said, it was 80,000 this year. For reasons Scott can explain, it's going up. So they're looking at 130,000 next year and 5% increase per year thereafter. They also need high quality ambulances in order to do the job that they do. So they also need a retrofit or a new ambulance. And so I'll ask Scott Price, why is it important to have a high quality ambulance?
I'll try that one. Technical difficulties, but thank you. So yes, my name's Scott Price. I'm the president with Media Fire Company. As a lot of people in this room that are in the emergency services, we started very young. As soon as you could join the fire service. At 16 years old, you come in and sometimes it's family driven, family before you or whatever, and you've got that drive that wants to keep on getting to doing and doing what's great. But you know, as Dave said here earlier in this presentation, so we started doing this back with the ambulances back in the 60s. If anybody can remember slideshows and seeing pictures of the old Cadillac ambulances, well, it all started in media around Delaware County. It wouldn't be very hard to find a media ambulance out in Conquerville at 202 and Route 1 because that was the closest ambulance. You know, we've always been a leader in equipment and what is needed to give our people the tools in the toolbox to do their job right. You know, it's expensive. The costs come in, the costs go out. And we work with Mainline Health, closest operations, you know, Riddle Hospital in Middletown Township. We rely on them for our paramedic partner, as Dave stated, ALS, Advanced Life Support Unit. Okay, it's known as a paramedic, advanced life support, and such. We have an EMT and a paramedic that work on the ambulance day in and day out as that team, and obviously, you know, our friends with here locally with Rose Tree Fire Company, the Upper Providence Police Department, who are cross-trained, not just as a police officer or a firefighter, but they have many people that are also EMTs, first responders, in that note. So they have life-saving capabilities as well. So it's really a great partnership. But with times as they've been, you know, costs, just like anything else, keep on going up, and up. Salaries, insurances, work comp, just cost of living. Last year, we had to reach out to our municipal friends and say, hey, we really need your help to pay for all this because we're not getting the reimbursements from the transports with the medical insurance. You know, it becomes very hard to collect that, and you're as much as you pay for your medical insurance. I hate to say it, but they really don't care that we just saved your life, and you know, it's not worth it to them. Well, we care, and we've had a lot of good experiences here, and having the best equipment possible to help our residents, to help our friends. I'm also a township resident, so I've been here since 1998. So, you know, I'm also sitting on this side of the table right now, but I could be out there as well and understanding everything. But you know, we day in and day out, these volunteers, I'm volunteer, you know, and we do this because it's our heart. You know, the next portion here is about the ambulance. So right now we have a 2016 and we have a 2022. When we bought the 2022 ambulance and it was delivered, it cost us $350,000. When it was delivered, the salesman said, "Hey, you want to go buy another one?" I'm like, "Why?" He's like, "Oh, it just went up another $100,000." Well, I don't feel comfortable sitting there saying, "Hey, let's go spend another 100 or $450,000 on another ambulance." So for the first time, what we're looking at doing, because our ambulances, when we had them built, are high quality. They are put together so much better than some other units that are out on the street. They're going to last longer. And now what we're looking at doing is taking the back end off of it and putting it on a new chassis, which will save significant amount of money. It's the smarter thing to do, and we'll get another 10 years out of the ambulance. Right now there's about a 2 to 3 year wait to get a re-chassis done. So we have to be thinking about this sooner than later. Otherwise, we're going to, have some problems mechanically. We spend money all the time for maintenance, the upkeep, to make sure that these things are top notch. They're running as they need to 24/7. The cost of, the stretcher alone, the stretcher, if anybody's ever had to be in the back of an ambulance here recently, you probably have seen that back in the day, the EMTs and paramedics had to fully lift you up on that stretcher and put you in the ambulance. Now they're motorized. That motorized system in the back of the ambulance is $65,000 just for that unit, to make it safe for the patient, for the resident. And that doesn't include the stair chair that we have to have. That's whenever you can't walk because you're not feeling good to get out of the house, which is $18,000. God forbid if somebody goes into cardiac arrest, we have an automatic CPR unit that can give you the best CPR possible. That's $20,000. Now times that by 2 trucks, because we have 2 trucks. So it's a lot of money that's putting out there. But going back to the first part, the $80,000, which we went to the municipalities about, was to cover the gap, the increases that was needed to pay for the ALS, the paramedic service, with our partner Mainline Health. It went up $240,000 because for a long time we were not being charged the real good rates, where they were taking it on the shoulder. And it just as costs keep on going up, up and up, we need to, be able to do that and provide the residents of Upper Providence Township the service and the care that they need and deserve. I'd hate to sit there and say to somebody, "Oh, I'm sorry, you're not getting a paramedic on your when you're having chest pains." And whenever he's not going to be able, or he or she's not going to be able to give you the best care possible, and now you got to turn around and talk to your loved one and say, "Hey, I'm sorry, they didn't make it." So emergency services is very important. It's very important in this township or anywhere you go. I can't say enough about that. If I didn't care, I wouldn't be here. And I think if everybody that's sitting here out in the audience here or on Zoom or the YouTube channel here listening, if you all didn't care, you wouldn't be here either. So, thank you.
Thank you, Scott. Next is the great Rose Tree Fire Department. First of all, thank you very much to the fire company for hosting us here tonight. It was very helpful. So the Rose Tree Fire Department, established in 1953, 24/7 coverage, and it provides mutual aid to the surrounding communities, including EMS. And that was obvious on the July 2nd accident out at Route 1 and 252 when this fire company responded to that. And another fire company came in here to cover the township while our fire company was down on Route 1 dealing with that crash. so they cooperate with each other and have plans in advance on what to do when things like that happen. It's 100% volunteer, 35 active volunteers, and all of those volunteers have to go through many hours of training and attending to the business of the company. It has lots of things other than the actual firefighting that they have to do to keep the fire company going. They've operated a Quint apparatus since 1976. So the estimated fire cost in this year's budget is $200,000. That doesn't mean the fire company gets $200,000, they get $50,000. There's another 150 of associated costs, the largest of which is $110,000, which goes to Aqua for the fire hydrants in the township. And here's the pie chart. So even that 200,000 is 3% of the total general fund budget. The amount that actually goes to the fire company, the 50,000, is less than 1% of the general fund budget. So in terms of the needs of the fire company from the township's discussions with them, one is to have a Quint fire truck. And I'll ask Chief Mike Cosgrove if he can talk about why it's important to have a new Quint.
Thank you. Again, my name is Mike Cosgrove. I'm Chief of Rosary Fire Company. So the decision was made by the Rosary Fire Company to replace our current Quint ladder truck. The truck is a 2001 75-foot ladder truck. We signed the contract in September of 2022. By the time it arrives here next year in September of 2025, the truck will be 24 years old. So the reason we decided to use a Quint truck is it's a multi-purpose truck. So Quint's 5. It has a pump, a water tank, fire hose, ground ladders, and an aerial ladder. It is the workhorse of our fleet. It goes out to over 48% of our calls that we respond in town and also our mutual aid. And then since 2001, the ladder technology for apparatus has changed drastically and improved safety-wise. Our old ladder truck is a steel ladder. The new one will be aluminum. Even down to the size of it, the jack spread of an old truck, you have to have a fairly wide street. If you can open up the doors of our cab, you can set the rig up and put it into service to help make a rescue or to vent a roof. Also, the new ladder has a tip load rating, which is at the end of the weight rating for the end of the ladder of 750 pounds compared to 500 pounds for the old ladder. And you might ask, why is that important? If we need to make a rescue, if you have a firefighter on the tip of the ladder and now you're bringing a victim out, you need that extra weight in order to help complete the rescue. And just basically the overall safety components of a new ladder. Again, 24 years is a very old age for a ladder truck. The truck was designed specifically for our township. As you can see, they brought up a print right now. Our old ladder is was 75 feet in height for the ladder. This new truck will be 100. Now you might say, why do we need a 100-foot ladder truck? Because we're a bedroom community, as we talked about earlier. We don't need it for the height. We need it for the reach off the side. Many houses in the township are set back from the street and we can't reach it with our 75-foot ladder. We also have many long driveways. So this truck was specifically designed with the township needs in mind. You can see it's a little detail, the single wheel in the back. A typical Quint ladder truck has 2 wheels in the back, which adds to the overall length. This truck is only 2 feet longer than our current apparatus. And the reason we want the short wheelbase is, again, is to get into tight places. Driveways, some of our smaller streets. Again, it helps with all the layout of the township. Let's see. This, and also, once we receive this, the truck is unique for Delaware County. This will be the only single axle 100-foot Quint within Delaware County. There are some other municipalities that have 100-foot trucks, but they do not carry water or hose on them. Most of the ones that are quints are 75-foot. The 100-foot ladders that are surrounding us have 2 axles in the back that make them longer, typically 42 feet long. This truck will be 39 feet long. Again, it's the workhorse of it. It did respond to 45% of the calls last year, so it's 144 calls compared. Our engine, that was the first picture that you saw, that responded to 38% of the calls, and our rescue, which is just for vehicle rescue, 27% of the calls. Now, with all of our fleet, all of our trucks are multi-purpose. For our rescue, if our engine is out of service, our rescue is also a pump rescue, so we don't lose capabilities within the township while the truck is out of service for maintenance, inspections, anything like that. That's all I have for the operations.
Uh, With us is Jim Henry, who's president of the company. Jim, can you share with us some important statistics regarding the fire company? It's pushed up. Yeah. Okay.
Okay. There we go, technology. Well, thank you very much, Dave. Again, I'm James Henry. I'm president of Rose Tree Fire Company. And I'm here to talk tonight about our volunteers. And Mike is a very humble guy. So I'm going to ask him to tell you, Mike, how many years have you been a volunteer firefighter?
37 years.
Thank you. All right. I've been a volunteer firefighter for 45 years. I have been in senior management of the fire service, been in this company and other companies for 40 of those 45 years. So tonight I've put together some information for you I'd like to go over so you get a full and complete picture of Rose Tree Fire Company. We were chartered in 1953 under the principles of volunteerism. Today, as we sit here now, we still remain completely 100% volunteer. There are no paid staff in this station. We respond to you 24/7, 365 as volunteers. I'd like a show of hands because when we're out on the street, we meet so many people who do not know that. Is there anybody in this room that did not know we are 100% volunteer? Thank you for your honesty. I appreciate it. This is what we want to get out to everyone to understand. A lot of people move in from other areas that have paid departments, and they just automatically assume that we are paid. We are not. So that's a very important factor. Our volunteers sincerely give thousands of hours collectively each year to serve and protect the residents of Upper Providence. The July 1 of 2023 population census for Upper Providence was 10,786 people. I'm sure by now it's more. We have approximately 35 active members here, of which 30 are residents of this township. I've been a resident here since 1986. If you do the math, that means that 1/3 of 1% of the residents of this township volunteer to serve and protect this community. If we were a paid department, and this is for you to hear this because you're residents and taxpayers. If we were a paid department, the cost would be comparable to the police, but much higher. This also does not include the cost of the apparatus. So the truck that is before you tonight, the portion that we'll be talking about that is the township's portion to contribute to us, is only half of the cost. So this new truck is going to cost $1.3 million. That's just one truck. If you had to put 4 trucks or 3 trucks in a station, you're looking at a cumulative just in the apparatus purchase of over $3.5 million, not counting staffing, workman's comp, pension, all the things you heard about. So this fire department is doing the taxpayers of Upper Providence a very sincere service in saving you tax dollars. We are comprised of professionals from many different career paths. We bring all of these services together and our talents to make our company strong and successful. be it in our training and emergency responses or our business practices. Take time to think about that. When you see one of our dedicated volunteers, please give them your appreciation and gratitude. We send out a donation request each year to our residents who are homeowners, the people that live in the various apartment complexes here in the township, and the businesses within the township. This request is to help support our operating budget. Our operating budget includes training, fund drive expenses, because to send those notices out to you costs us money. Equipment repairs. Let's see here. Fuel. You all know what the fuel costs are doing to us right now. Insurance, capital improvements, building maintenance, office supplies, cleaning supplies, utility costs, and loans for apparatus and building expansion, as well as our various social media accounts and et cetera. This makes up our yearly operational budget, which this year is $333,000. Now, you heard Chief Montella talk about radios. The county is instituting a new emergency radio system countywide, fire, police, and EMS. There will be certain radios provided to each one of the companies, but Rose Tree Fire Company will encumber an additional cost that we will have to pay of approximately $32,000 for those radios that will not be covered by the county's grants. In addition to that, last year, this building here you're in was built in 1963. Last year and into this year, because of supply chain issues, we had to replace a majority of our infrastructure, including our furnace system, backup generator, air conditioners, some of which were installed in 1963. That cost was over $110,000. We successfully applied for, received, and utilized grant money to completely cover those costs. It did not cost the taxpayers here from the township side, did not cost you anything. This is due to the dedication of our membership to very wisely and fiscally manage our assets. Historically, statistical data on our donation request that I mentioned, and this is over the last 3 years, but it remains consistent. Residents' response percentages is only 28%. Apartment residents are only 3%. Our businesses are only 13%. That's the amount of those different people that did respond to us. For those dedicated residents who've responded to us and supported us over the years, we say a very sincere thank you. But I must tell you, I hope that these statistics will gain the attention of the 72%, 97%, and 87% respectfully, or yes, that have not donated. Now, the township manager did mention to you that we get $50,000. That's our line item in their budget to go towards our operating cost. If you do the math, that is only 15% of our operating budget. We have not asked for that to be increased for many years because the township has been participating with us as a partner in helping to purchase our apparatus. It's also clear with my counterpart here from media, which we love them. We're sister companies. We run together, work together. But to be clear, Rose Tree Fire Company does not provide the EMS service to the township. That is provided by media. However, we respond with them jointly and assist their EMS when needed, depending on the nature of the situation. Now, let's talk about the new Quint that Mike went over. We have been in communications with the township now for about 4 years regarding this new apparatus. So we've been working together on it and discussing it for over 4 years. We have had an apparatus replacement schedule of all our fire apparatus given to the township over 25 years ago. In June of 1999, we presented the township with our 25-year apparatus replacement schedule, which they agreed to and accepted. They have been partners with us since. I was part of putting that together, and I'm very proud to say to you that I actually went back and looked at it today. In 1999, we did not know about 9/11. We did not know about the crash of 2008, and we certainly did not know about the pandemic. But in reviewing our existing engine that sits out there now, our rescue, our existing Quint, and this new Quint, we were only off in 1999 of estimating the cost of this apparatus tonight we're talking about by less than 8%. We are only off in the delivery date by approximately 2 years. One of those years was due to the pandemic, which slowed down the whole specification and negotiation process. And the other one is because the new Quint coming in has been delayed due to the supply chain issue brought on by the pandemic. The original date of the new Quint coming in was to be April of this year. We were very excited about that. Then November, excuse me, November of this year. Then it slipped to April of 2025, and now it is pushed back to September or October of 2025. We have to keep the existing Quint running, so we have to maintain it, and we are very good at our maintenance. Our engine that sits out there, which was in the picture here when we started, we just spent almost $30,000 to have it repaired to keep it in service. So it's, as Scott has said, it is not free to keep this stuff running. All right. Regarding the $650,000 for the township for the new Quint, that equates to approximately $32,500 per year over an anticipated 20-year life of the new apparatus. The reality is, and what we're looking at now with our existing one, it is more likely to be about $28,300 per year over a 23-year period. Oh, yeah. Another important part of this, all the surrounding municipalities around us completely purchased the apparatus for their fire companies. We are the only fire company in this area that splits the cost with their township, and we fund the majority of it as best we can. There is a utility vehicle that's going to cost approximately $50,000 that we'll be providing on our own and not asking for the township to support that. But we are the only ones that do that in this whole area. This building and all of our assets are solely and completely owned by Rose Tree Fire Company. We are not owned by the township. So we operate and maintain all of our assets, our buildings, out of our own budgets. We submitted for a 2% state loan to help a part of the portion that we will pay for this new apparatus, and we were successful in getting that loan. It's a program the state does for volunteer fire company and EMS. But because the delivery date of the new apparatus has been delayed, the startup of our loan has also been delayed. And that was okay until the state contacted us and said, oh, by the way, we changed our policy. And since we don't have a signed contract yet, your term is now reduced. So therefore, we have to pay more per year to pay off this loan. And by the way, it's a take it or leave it. If you don't like it, don't sign the contract. Well, we can't afford that. So things are constantly changing for us, but we adapt to every situation. That's what firefighters do. We come up against it with the police, and we adapt, and we overcome, and we manage, and we end the chaos. In addition to that loan that we will encumber starting next year, we currently have 4 other loans, which is a part of our operating budget, 4 other low-interest loans for our other apparatus and our building upgrades that we have done. Now, this is a very important part to the funding for this new apparatus and all of our apparatus. We have some very smart people here. We do not pay a single penny for any apparatus until it has been delivered, it has been QA checked, and it has been deemed acceptable for us to receive it. Only at that time will we pay for that apparatus. That protects the interest of the township, the fire department, our residents, and it gives us a good situation to sit and negotiate. Because our truck is being delayed by a year and a half now, other manufacturers are charging, who are experiencing the same problem, because the reason for the delay in this delivery is because of the suppliers that make the engines for the trucks. We are not at the top of the list to get those engines. So our negotiations with this supplier, they cannot raise the price of our truck because of these delays. They will eat the losses. Other manufacturers are raising the cost of their fire companies by over 15 to 20%. So again, Rose Tree Fire Company, being all volunteer and made up of various professionals, we have been specifying and working with manufacturers and building our apparatus for over 71 years. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jim. Okay, well, let's go on to the next department, which is our hardworking Public Works Department. The Public Works Department has 6 full-time and 1 seasonal employee. These guys work very hard. Can you imagine yourself being out there in the last month in these 90-plus degree temperatures? You're working on the roads and working on the stormwater system and so forth. They really have been doing a heroic job there. They have 1 seasonal employee, which is a college kid from the township, who's working this summer with them. And Dave Peischer, who's our roadmaster, met with his mother and just assured him she was going to take care of, he was going to take care of her son this summer. Nothing was going to happen to him in spite of all the heat and stuff. But he's really earning his money this summer. So they're Monday to Friday, 7 a.m. to 3 p.m., 24/7 emergency on-call services. So a lot of times Dave will get called on the weekend if something, trees come down on a utility line or on a road or something, that they have to come out and deal with that. They do road repair, building maintenance on all the township buildings, stormwater maintenance, park maintenance, fall cleanups and snow removal, and street and line painting. They do the crosswalks and all the things that you see painted on the roads. So the estimate in this year's budget is $735,000, which is about 10% of the overall budget, as you can see on that pie chart there. Here's an example of a sinkhole. You know Media Station Road. There are stormwater pipes there that have broken, collapsed. The road is collapsed. It's a mess. And this is an example of something bad happening that could be multiplied multiple times across the township if things aren't taken care of when they need to be taken care of. So we had a sit down with our township engineer and with the public works guys to come up with a list. So this list that you see here from 3 through 16, this is all stormwater projects. And when you see a number here like 80,000, it's 80,000 if we get it fixed soon. It can be 300,000 if we don't get it fixed soon and the road collapses into the creek, or there's something else dramatic that happens. So that's the bulk of these projects that we're looking at. We're also looking at a public works garage and storage facility in the back of the township building. If the police department moves over to the district court building, that'll free up space behind the township building for another storage facility, which Dave Peischer will talk about. We also have listed, we have a regular road program, as you know, each year, but there's a real need to address the roads and sidewalks near Rosemont Elementary, Rose Tree Elementary School. So that's on the list here too. So these are really serious improvement projects that need to get done. So let me ask a few questions here. So Dave Peischer, why does Public Works need more storage space? Let me give you this mic.
Thank you. The highway department, we have one building and we are completely filled. We have no room for anything else. We have 3 of our trucks that sit outside in the parking lot. And unfortunately, the squirrels have got under the hood and chewed the wires. And it's cost the township over $3,000 to get the trucks wired again. So we really need more room for, all the equipment we already have. We currently have a couple trailers. We use them for loading up for grass cutting with the mowers or a paint machine to paint lines. And we are actually storing them at a highway employee's house in his yard and an ex-employee. So Bill and Steve, if you're watching, thank you guys very much.
Thank you, Dave. Is our pay scale for Public Works competitive?
I checked into a few things. I personally feel that ours is a little low compared to other townships. We're maybe $4 or $5 an hour lower. We have a couple guys that have been working 8, 10 years or more, and they're still not at the starting rate of other townships. There's a couple townships that have a laborer 1 and a laborer 2. Laborer 2, they have a CDL license, which all our guys have. And like I said, they're still not even up to their starting pay rate. So a little added on is we put an advertisement out to hire a new person for the highway. We had 0 applicants. So,
So Dave, does our Public Works staff have the capacity to support all the township parks?
we can always use another guy. We have 6 parks that we maintain. That's cutting grass, repairs on any equipment, trimming the perimeter of the field so it doesn't get overgrown. We pick up trash every Monday, keep it cleaned. And in between that usually takes 2 to 2.5 days to cut all the township grass. And then we maintain over 400 storm drains. So every time you get a storm, they all clog up with leaves. That takes a day or so. We ride around, clean the storm drains. We also repair them, and sometimes we have to rebuild them. So we stay pretty busy, and another guy would not hurt at all. You get vacation, people are gone. Just give you an example. Tomorrow, we are actually down to 2 guys. We're not going to be able to do anything out on the roads at all. You don't have enough. You need 2 flaggers. You need a couple workers, and we're shorthanded. So,
Thank you, Dave. That's great.
welcome.
We also have with us JP Kelly of JP Kelly Engineers, who's the township engineer. And I want to ask him a couple questions. So on this infrastructure list, JP, why is it important to tackle these projects sooner rather than later?
Well, as you said, the longer you wait, the more expensive it becomes. And there's we have an example that we went through not too long ago, and that is Farnham Road. And that road was closed for a while because the side of it had collapsed. It was about to collapse. There's a 10-inch sewer main in there and an 8-inch water main. So it could have been catastrophic if it was not repaired when it was repaired. But throughout the years, there just simply wasn't enough money in the budget to make a repair as costly as it was. So that project was about $600,000 to do that, to stabilize that road and to fix it. Not long ago, within the past several months, we also had a repair on Sandy Bank Road. That was more of an unknown situation, but it needed to be addressed immediately. There was a stormwater pipe that was routed underneath a house, a dwelling. So we went through the bidding process, design process, and we were fortunate enough to get a grant to help fund that project. So the longer you wait to deal with a project, like the photograph that was just recently shown on Media Station Road, that's a 12-inch terracotta pipe. Terracotta pipe, I don't think you can buy anymore. That's how old it is. It's very, very difficult to find, and nor would you ever specify it. So the longer we wait on that one, the more damage we're going to have to repair.
Thanks, JP. Another question, why do the roads and sidewalks near Rose Tree Elementary School need to be addressed?
There's few sidewalks by Rose Tree Elementary. In fact, I don't think there's maybe one or two, but the idea is to connect a safe passage from Providence Road through that neighborhood to the elementary school, because there are a lot of walkers. There are a lot of kids that do go there by foot, and it needs to be addressed. It's something that council's been struggling with for, I would say, several years now, or maybe more, as far as what's the best way to do that. Do we change directions of the road? Do we eliminate some parking? Do we increase the width of the road? Do we install sidewalks? But that neighborhood could be best served with sidewalks to the school.
Thank you, JP. Okay, moving on to the administrative department, the least interesting department, which includes me. So we have the manager. This is in the office. We have a communications and special project managers. That's Marila Watson. You want to stand up? She does lots of special projects, including parks and roads and so forth around the township. We have an administrative liaison, Kim McCloskey, who handles a lot of the associated commissions and boards that deal with specific topics like environmental within the township. We have a permanent administrator, which we actually have 3 Kims in the office and 1 on the board. And we have 3 Daves, me, the chief, and Dave Peischer. So 3 Daves, 4 Kims, and then a few other names that we let in. But so the permit administrator is Kimberly Hill. She's the one who greets you when you come in the building and turn to your right. And she does a great job with permits and so forth. And then we have a finance assistant, Kim Dwyer. So Kim, as our finance director, left in mid-March, and Kim has done a terrific job standing in and getting a lot of things done that needed to get done. We also contract out certain functions, the zoning with Lynn Architects, and code enforcement with JP Kelly Engineers. So they work closely with the people in the staff in the building when things need to be investigated and done out in the township. Of course, we have our township solicitor, Carl Ewald, and our elected officials. So that's the administrative team. The services provided are general administrative, finance, permits and licenses, and zoning. And the estimated general fund cost for administration is 1.2 million, which is about 17% of the budget. So as the interim manager, my favorite thing to do is to get away from the computer and the phone, which is most of my day, and get out with Dave Peischer and go look at something that's going on in the township with the public works guys. Okay. The one cost we've got for administration is if we move the police department from the township building where it is now over to the district court building. We've got space opening up in the township building for administration. Right now, Marila has an office that's sort of like a closet, more than an office. So we do need some more space, and so there would be a cost for outfitting the township building to convert the police space into general administrative offices. And that's it in terms of all the departments. So I'll turn it back over to Ryan.
Thank you very much. All right,
Oh, can I
moving
do one
on.
more thing? I'm sorry, I did want to ask Jeff Gentile one question. No, I knew. He does not want to do the public speaking, but is it important for the township to update its zoning ordinance? That's a good softball for you.
Yeah, the answer would be yes. We've been enforcing the township zoning code for the last couple of years. And just briefly understand what zoning is. Basically, zoning regulates the land uses that are in the township. And the way it does that with the zoning code, obviously, and basically breaking up the township into different zoning districts, and allows specific uses within those districts. And even more simplistically, it really protects your property values. That's what it's there for. You don't want someone putting a chemical treatment plant next to your house. You don't want someone building an addition on their house 3 or 4 stories high, 6 inches from your property line. So the zoning code helps to regulate that, regulate the size of structures, maintains green space, uh, regulates where commercial, residential uses can be, industrial uses, parking for commercial, stuff like that. Like I stated, we've been enforcing for the last couple of years. We have been seeing some discrepancies, um, maybe some things that aren't clear with the code. We feel there's some things in the code that are maybe a little too strict, uh, than other things that maybe should be a little more strict. So I'm not sure when the last time the zoning code was reviewed, but we kind of feel probably about time that the code be reviewed as an overlook of the whole code and just um, and where the township is today, not when it was written before, to address situations that you're dealing with today, including some uses that didn't even exist when the code was adopted and even updated even not that long ago. There's uses now that aren't in there because no one thought about them back then because they weren't around. So yeah, it is about time, I think, that the township does do that.
All right, moving on. As we discussed when we talk about, and first of all, I want to thank everybody for the time that they're taking. I know this is a lot tonight. You're basically getting a full in-depth financial review and also an operational review of everything that takes place in the township. So it is a ton of information. I know it's long. We're doing our best to try to speed it up and keep it moving, but thank you all very much for your attention and being here. As we discussed earlier, clearly this is not something that's sustainable. This cannot happen. So what can we possibly do to move forward with addressing this budget deficit? Really, there's only 2 ways that you can look at it. You have either reduction in expenses or increases in revenue. And talking with members of council and also the staff and Dave as well, don't really believe that cutting expenses here is a reasonable alternative for a number of reasons. One, the services that are required in the township are wanted by the citizens of the township from what we're hearing. We haven't heard anyone say we don't want these services. They're saying we like the service we have, we want to keep them. So there's, you've got that. You also have contractual obligations, and you have legislative obligations from the state that you're required to do. So you can't make those cuts. And then any meaningful reduction in expenses would require that service cuts. And as such, it's something that we're not looking to entertain moving forward. That brings us back to increasing revenue. There really only are 2 options for increasing revenue. One is increasing fees. That's really de minimis. It also can't be a moneymaker. State law requires that fees equal the expense that is incurred to undertake them. So you can't just say, let's raise building permits and charge $1,000 a permit. It's against the law. You can't do that. So they have to match the expenses. So really, it comes down to increasing taxes. When we're moving forward, taking a look at 2 different alternatives. One, the real estate tax, which is currently charged, as well as taking a look at what would an earned income tax do for the township and the residents here. Earned income being available under Act 511 under the Commonwealth Code. I think most people know what real estate taxes are, but for those who don't, this is the amount that you pay on your assessed valuation of your home. One of the things I want to point out when it comes to real estate taxes is that there are 3 taxing districts that assess a real estate tax. You have the county, you have the township, and you have the school district. In Upper Providence Township, actually charges the lowest millage out of all 3 of those taxing districts. And so when we're talking about taxes, we're specifically talking about the real estate taxes for Upper Providence. Pros for the real estate taxes, it is very stable. It is levied equally amongst the residents here based on the assessed value. So if you have a higher assessed property, you're going to pay more than someone that's in a lower house. It is on all taxable properties. It's very easy to collect. Some cons. like I talked about, is you're one of three. So if the school district needs to raise taxes, it also goes to those residents. If the county needs to raise taxes, it's again going back to the residents on that property. There is limited to no natural growth. And then it's levied regardless of your income. So for retirees, it becomes more burdensome as opposed to other alternatives. Without constant reassessment from the county, it can become disproportional. So as properties change, you might have an assessed value, but it's not really a fair assessment related to neighbors. And also from a timing perspective on some cash flow, it comes in one big slug primarily in the end of the first quarter, beginning of the second. Here's a little bit of information on where you are in real estate taxes. The township is highlighted in the yellow. As I mentioned earlier, you are the lowest of all three taxing bodies at 2.399 mills, make up about 11.29% of the total property taxes charged, with the largest piece being the school district and the county coming in at about 15% as well. One of the things I want to point out, it's not on this slide, but that 2.399% is in the lowest third of communities in Delaware County. So the residents here are in the lowest third. And additionally, if you look at the average tax millage for a Delaware County municipality is about 5.4. The residents here are only about 40 or about 42% below or 60% below the average, about 42% of the average. So your taxes relative to surrounding communities is very low. When we take a look at your actual statistics for what is billed and the amount that is collected, you have about 3,600 properties. Your total taxable assessment is $1,700,000,000, and your face billing is about $4 million. The budget for 2024 is 3.8, and the average resident has a tax bill of about $1,000. That's what the average resident pays. The quintiles, however, if you're in the lowest fifth or the lowest 20%, the average bill is only $549. So when you're looking at those lower income homes, again, that bill relative to what you pay for a number of different other bills, like your cell phone bill or your Comcast bill, is a lot lower than that. You have a residential 3,400, and then you have 106 commercial, and then some ground properties there. Taking a look at closing the deficit, if we were to look strictly at property taxes. So we've got the projected deficit of $1.3 million, I'm rounding up, annual growth of 270 out to 2028. You're looking at a hole of about $2 million that you would need to make up. That would require a 39% increase in the current taxes that are levied at that 2.9, and it would grow to about 55% in current real estate taxes for 2028. That assumes all are done, yes. That assumes every single project is undertaken, all of the increase in expenses that are needed, it covers all of it. So yeah, that is the max. That is, if everything is undertaken to close that deficit, that's what it would require. Additionally, that amount would also establish a fund balance that grows and gets to a level that is needed and healthy. In 2028, you would still have revenues that exceed expenses and a fund balance projected a little over $3 million. When you take a look at that, I wanted to do what would that be for your tax burden. Currently, you have three breakdowns that I want to look at when you're talking about residents. It's one, residents who are workers, and then residents who pay an earned income tax, because there are some residents of Upper Providence that are already paying an earned income tax because where they work is levying it, that township is levying it. And then also people who are in Philadelphia and work in Philadelphia who have to pay that wage tax. So in general, the mean assessed valuation is $450,000. The mean household income in the township is $186,000. You have real estate taxes of 3.9, and you have an emergency municipal service tax of $47. For residents who don't pay an earned income tax, total bill is about $1,073, and as a percentage of your total household income is 0.6. So 0.6 is your burden for a person who is working but pays no EIT. If they are paying the EIT already, it goes up to about 1.6%. And if they're paying Philadelphia its share, it's a significant number of 3.44%. They're paying about 4.04% in taxes to a municipality. It's not coming to you, might be going to an outlying municipality or going to the city of Philadelphia. In the future, residents who are paying no EIT would grow to about $1,700 or 0.91 and 1.91 and 4.35 respectively. For retirees, we could take a look at that. The average retiree for income of households above 65 is 96,000. So their burden is higher as a percentage there because they're making less money than a wage earner. Their burden is about 1.12. That would grow to about 1.73 on the mean assessed taxable valuation. Obviously, it's something that everyone is very concerned with. How do we do this equitably? How do we charge these costs? Wanted to take a look at what's another alternative, and it comes to that earned income tax. The earned income tax is allowable under Commonwealth law. In addition, as a home rule municipality, you have the ability to set that rate to what you decide is needed. The pros of it, it is only paid by wage earners. So it is not collected like federal income tax. It is only on W-2 earnings and filing, so retirees would not pay any earned income tax. It would only be the ones who are working. Another positive is that there is natural growth. As people's incomes grow, the revenue to the township grows without any increase in that rate. As inflation goes up and salaries go up, the revenue goes up to the township. It's something a little bit more stable. It has a lot of natural growth. Again, it is stable, and cash flow comes throughout the year. So as opposed to real estate taxes, what come one big slug, real earned income tax come every single month. Primarily, you have larger quarters as the employers make their quarterly filings, but you do receive money throughout. Cons is that it is not levied on businesses. So for a business, if you had a supermarket or commercial property, they're not paying it. They're only going to be paying the real estate. And also the fact that it would be a new tax for some residents within Upper Providence Township. We take a look at EIT. Under the township code, its maximum is 1%. School districts are allowed to take a 0.5% if they elect it. So far, the district in Upper Providence has not elected to take that for any of the municipalities that do levy it. So the full 1% comes to the township. As I mentioned earlier, you're in a little bit different of a situation because you're a home rule municipality. You can actually establish a levy higher than that. So you could establish a 1% even if the school district took a 0.5%. There are 22 municipalities in Delaware County that already charge that. And you would receive, the municipality, Upper Providence, receives taxing priority on that. So for the residents who are already paying an EIT to an outlying municipality where they work, if Upper Providence decides to institute an earned income tax, all that money reverts back to you first. So you would receive that money as opposed to the outlying municipality that's currently getting it, except for Philadelphia. Philadelphia gets to keep yours, so any wage earners in Philadelphia, that still goes to Philadelphia, the state of Delaware, and also the city of Wilmington. So they would keep theirs. Currently, Keystone Collection Group, which collects EIT from Delaware County municipalities, already has 1,525 filers from Upper Providence who are paying this tax already. And they're already collecting $907,000, and that money is just going out to those outlying municipalities. It's not staying here. In addition to that, Berkheimer, which is another large EIT collector throughout the Commonwealth, collects in counties throughout the Commonwealth, and they have another 491 residents who are already paying this tax for another $483,000, or about $1.4 million that would immediately revert back to the township. This doesn't count any of the other, so this is just for people that are already paying it. So we talked about there are about 4,500. You have about 40% of them, of people who are already paying it, that would come back. That doesn't count people in Philadelphia or Delaware who are also already paying this tax. According to the Department of Revenue, you had 4,685 tax returns. I see this is the old slide. But in total, the earnings reported was actually about 688 million. So 1% of that would equal about 606,800,000. We'll update this slide. There's a new slide that has the correct information. What you see here, total income reported 688,000, maximum collection at 1%, assuming that we say, okay, Philadelphia is going to take its cut, Delaware is going to take its cut. Let's assume about 60% of that comes back as opposed to the full 100%. That would be about $4.1 million on a 1% earned income tax that would come to Upper Providence Township as far as new revenue. And what does that mean? One, obviously, you would be able to balance your budget, but the other thing that you could possibly do is then go ahead and look at lowering real estate taxes. Because you have the new revenue coming in from that earned income tax, you could then say, all right, we don't need that full amount. We could potentially look at lowering real estate taxes. The timing of that is something that you would have to look at as you move forward, just because earned income tax, there is a 1-quarter delay the first year you institute it. And also you just want to make sure, okay, what are we going to actually get in those filings? So you might want to see that as opposed to all at once. But looking at this on a 1% earned income tax, and we're assuming lowering real estate taxes 61%, and you'd still be able to balance your budget and do all of the projects and all of the liabilities that we talked about today by the township switching and adding that 1% earned income. Then we take a look and say the same thing. What does that mean to that burden? On the current, which remains the same, the future goes up a little bit for the people who aren't paying an EIT. Theirs will go up to about 1.25. But for those who are already paying an EIT, their tax burden is going to go down because you lower the property taxes. Same with the people that are in Philadelphia. And when we take a look at retirees, that tax burden drops from 1.12 down to 0.44, because with a reduction in that real estate taxes from $1,073 down to $418. So that's another alternative when you move forward, or if you take a look at instituting an EIT at 1%. I know this has been a lot, and I know there are questions. But in conclusion, the township is in really good footing financially as far as the wealth and the ability to generate future revenue. But you have multiple options available that you can take a look at. How do you want to balance this budget moving forward while continuing to make the investments that the community has said it wants to make in public safety, police, fire, and EMS, infrastructure, roads, sidewalks, and the community projects and programs that really make Upper Providence the wonderful township it is to live and work in.
All righty. That's the end of the presentation. Thank you. And what we'd like to do now is have as we do at all the public meetings, have public input. You can have comments or you can have questions. We'd like to have a 3-minute limit per person so we can get as many people up here as are interested. When you come up, if you can say your name and your address and then ask your question or make your comment. So, yes, sir.
Chuck Ferraro, 806 Valley View Road.
Let's make sure that mic's working first.
Chuck Ferraro, 806 Valley View Road. As far as that money that was from the COLA for the police department, as an accountant by trade and a union rep for 30 years, how do you not realize a COLA has not been paid for 15 years? How do you get $2.8 million in debt? Who dropped the ball on that one? I mean, that's just ridiculous. Just from there. And the sewer and trash, you said that Upper Providence is in the bottom third of their, but you guys don't include sewer and trash. A lot of them municipalities include sewer and trash in their taxes. You put that $1,000 on top of your taxes, you're right at it at 1/3 at the bottom, because a lot of municipalities bill their taxes, sewer and trash all together. So you guys don't include that, you're screwing the statistics, and that drives me crazy. So, but I don't know what happened for 15 years and $2.8 million. Somebody dropped the ball on that one big time.
Why don't you come up, sir? Yeah.
My name is Jim Goldman, live on Chatham Place for 30 years. I think it's a great place to live. Thank you all for your hard work for us. I am one of the few, I guess, I'm a weirdo. I'm not asking for lots more services, and I appreciate your statement that, oh, everybody wants these. Not everybody. I think it's important that my fellow citizens could probably be a little more self-sufficient and not ask our township to deliver everything and anything they can think of. Not to say we don't need good police and fire and other emergency services, and roads and snow plowing are pretty important. But we don't need to ask for everything. I've been happy to support the fire department with I follow your annual fund drive every year. You guys are doing great. If there's a way to support the police, let us know. And as far as the earned income tax, don't do this. This is a mistake. Our real estate taxes, as we have pointed out, are low compared to other townships and are low compared to the other burdens we have of both state income tax, which we forgot about here, school district tax, which is the main tax that we pay, and Delaware County. I think we get much more valuable services from our township than we do from Delaware County. That's just an opinion. Others may vary. The real estate tax is low and can be raised. There is room for that. Real estate doesn't move. People move. If you start taxing incomes, incomes move. Incomes are portable and can move. Real estate doesn't move. So the other reason to not think about that earned income tax, it is not equitable. And we didn't mention this as a negative, but you are hitting only the earned income earners. You're not hitting everybody equally. Everybody does benefit by the services we offer. So give that some consideration. And as for we've heard this pitch in other townships that if you institute an earned income tax, real estate taxes will go down. I think real estate taxes never go down. Thank you.
Donna Ferraro, 806 Valley View Road. I want to know, how do you go about collecting earned income tax from renters? And I'll wait for an answer.
It's the same way that it goes from owners.
And so how
So-
is that?
So when a employer is paying, the employer is required to take that earned income out of their paychecks.
So
And
who
so they
tells
have
their
their-
employer?
So the
The
employee has
say,
to
oh,
list.
wait a minute.
the
Let me
employee has
let
to-
you know, I have an earned income tax in my township. Is that how it works?
No, no, the employee has to list an address of where they live. And so
okay.
the employee lists an address of where they live, and the employer and the tax collectors, they say these townships are levying a 1%. The employer is required to withhold that 1% out of the employee's paycheck.
Okay, well, I don't think it always happens that way. But two, I don't think we need sidewalks. I'm perfectly happy not having a sidewalk in front of my house. I don't want to mow it. I mean, shovel it in the winter. I don't want to take care of it. I don't want the neighbors saying, oh, your sidewalk's cracked down, I'm going to sue you. I don't want a sidewalk. I think it's personally a waste of money. But
Hi, I'm Ellen Morphy, 925 Second Avenue. I'm going to reduce my giant pile of questions, but I'm actually going to start by just making a clarification. I think it's really important to point out, I believe there was a mistake. In one of my neighbors speaking, they were using the words equal and equitable incorrectly. Equitable would mean in proportion, equal would mean the same for everybody. So an equitable tax structure is one that is um, usually in proportion to one's income. So the EIT may not be an equal tax, but it is a more equitable tax. And I think that's an important distinction. That was a that was a mistake by one of our neighbors. Now, I have a couple other questions though. I hope you'll take a close look at expenses. I'm not sure that we can't tighten our belts a little bit and not significantly reduce services. Or maybe when taken with the big picture in mind, we might be willing to trade off a couple service reductions. So I don't want expense reductions taken off the table. They were kind of talked about that way in the presentation. I'm not sure that's totally accurate. I'm sure we regularly look at our expenses, but to take a really sharp pencil to all of that seems timely when we're looking to manage our bottom line more effectively. You mentioned collections improvements for the real estate taxes. I'm curious about that. I'm curious if there's any more outstanding receivables for back taxes and if there's a way that we can make sure that we're collecting more proactively. It's great to receive, um, back taxes that had been owed, but that money was not in our hands to be used by us and grown during that time. So I'm wondering if we can collect more proactively. And I'll just go ahead and ask my other question, and you guys can answer both at the same time. I've never understood this, and it also seems a little bit inequitable. I kind of like it because I'm able to pay my taxes early and therefore pay less money. But I'm able to do that because, I'm financially able to pay as soon as my bill comes in. And it's never felt particularly equitable. People who are squeezed, probably can't pay early and then they have to pay their whole ticket. Is that a statutory requirement or can we just make everybody pay the full millage? I'm curious about that.
When you mean this, obviously get the 2% discount or the face or the penalty of the 10% on top. Yep. Flat. Yes. Yep. Nope. It's the 3-tiered. So I don't know that off the top of my head if you have to give the discount. To your point about I know there are municipalities that do allow payment plans to be used. And in addition, you're right, from the standpoint of people who are squeezed, who, if they don't have a mortgage and they're not paying that real estate tax in their monthly payments, it can be a tough big bill that they have to swallow at one time. Yes. As far as your collections actually are at a pretty high rate, over 95% when you take a look at collections. And in addition to that, just the system that's set up for that, it's almost 100% over time because they go into the collections, then property is liened, they go to the county sheriff's tax sale, and the money comes in. But as far as the collections, the tax collections, the percentage rate is exceedingly high for real estate taxes.
Are there any other questions or comments? Yeah.
Hi, my name's Liz Piazza. I've been a resident of Upper Providence for 30 years. And I just want to commend all of the departments. As long as I lived here, I've had nothing but great experience with you guys. Before I ask my question, I wanted to say that. I also want to commend your permitting department. I've worked for the county for 20 years. 3 years ago, I retired and went to work for my son's company, Piazza Property Pros. We do permits with every township throughout Delaware County and then some. And Jeff Gentili and Kim have been amazing. They are the easiest township to work with, and I just wanted to commend that department. My question for you, though, is by moving the police department and giving up the district court with the county, how much rent are you actually losing?
I don't remember the number. It's Much smaller than I thought it was when I looked at the number, though. So it's not a significant amount of money.
Significant amount
It's under 50,000 is my recollection.
per year?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, that was my question. Thank you.
Okay. Yes, sir.
Hello, Rich Margulies, 927 Second Avenue. I just have a quick question. I remember for years I used to receive the Berkheimer, I guess, EIT, is that what it was? And all of a sudden, the pink slips just disappeared, never came anymore. Oh, that's a per capita, so that's not EIT.
Yes, so there's per capita is another tax that's
Right.
authorized under Act 511.
I saw Berkheimer and it just rang.
Yep, and Berkheimer would be a collector for capita. My understanding is that the township decided to get rid of that
Okay,
tax.
so that's not coming
because
back. That's not
It's a
something-
nuisance tax. It's $15 a
It's not
year
really that much.
typically, 5 of which the township gets and 10 that goes to the school
Right.
district. And on the discount, it's $9.80 and $4.
It
So
just kind of weird, it just, no
did, it
explanation, it
stopped.
just disappeared one day.
yeah, and from the review of the finances and the collections amount, yes, per capita stopped
Right.
in 2000.
One more question on the EIT. I do work, my wife's retired, but I do work. So I work in Norristown, so I'm assuming they're taking their EIT out of theirs. So with that, you're saying I would get a refund on that or something, or it wouldn't be coming out anymore?
What county is Norristown in?
Montgomery County.
Unfortunately, I don't know the
Okay.
statistics for Montgomery County. I have all of them for Delaware County, so I don't know if Norristown is already charging an EIT. If they are, it would just revert. You wouldn't get a refund.
It would just
as
revert
opposed
to
to
you.
it going to Norristown, it would come to here.
So if you implement the EIT, it would just show up out of my paycheck out of there. Okay, just wanted to know.
Yep.
I'm Leslie Friedman. I live at 140 Park Place. So if we charged 0.01% of an EIT, would the money we're paying to other municipalities still come to us? Does it have to be 1% or could it be a nominal amount? I'm just asking, I don't.
The amount that the township decides to levy is up to it. So you could levy 1%, you could levy 0.5%, you could levy 3/4.
Regardless of the amount we levy, would all the monies that other people pay to other municipalities, for example, the gentleman who pays to Norristown, would that all come back to us 100% or is it proportional?
It would all come back to you first.
100%.
So if someone else,
No, if we're charging less, we get what we charge, and the excess goes to Norristown or
That's what I
wherever the
was
other one is.
asking.
Yes.
Okay, great. I agree with my neighbor about eliminating the 2% early payment. I mean, I pay right away, but it's always struck me as a little odd. In terms of the cash flow, I mean, just send out bills throughout the year to different residents. I don't think there's a reason, is there, to send them all out at one time?
from the property perspective, I'd have to look at the actual legislation. I believe it is required to be done at once, and it's typically handled by the county, and they send everybody's out. So all municipal bills go out at the exact same time of the year, and then all municipal and county get sent together, and then school district gets sent in the summer.
So our township tax bills are sent out by the county?
At most locations, I'd have to double check here, but in other counties that I work in, it's usually done at that level. I don't know who does yours, to be honest.
Okay, and what does a reassessment cost?
That can be a big number. I don't know what Delaware County paid for their reassessment most
just
recently.
wondering
I
if it-
know for some counties that I'm working in that are considering it, they're looking, and they're smaller counties, they're looking at upwards of over $6-7 million
Okay, I just had no
just for the
idea.
reassessment.
Understood.
For a larger county with more, it could be significantly higher than that.
Thank you. And last question is, are our financial statements audited each year?
They are.
So who were the auditors, in 2009 that did not notice that we weren't meeting a contractual obligation?
I can't speak to who they are, but I do know that that sort of thing is not something that an auditor would normally pick up.
That's not necessarily true, it's not necessarily true if you're comparing expenses year to year and line items.
It wouldn't show up like that. So the way an MMO works is that it stands for your minimum municipal obligation. So in 2009, the actuary was performing their actuary services like normal, and they would have an unfunded liability that the MMO would be paying. So the bill, I'm making this number up, was $100,000 a year. The following year, there's a change in assumptions, or there's a change in market value of the assets in the plan. And so when they removed when they removed that COLA piece and they stopped funding it, there could be other changes within that plan where the MMO didn't change much. So from a perspective of looking at that, you wouldn't see a drastic increase or a drastic drop, because they said, we're changing this assumption. And so the amortization might have been, there's a lot of reasons why that wouldn't necessarily be picked up by an auditor.
But those kind of liabilities are reviewed annually, correct?
I guess you'd have to explain what you mean by that.
Pension liability or pension calculations, those are reviewed annually, correct? And
Yes.
the question is whether they're reviewed by an outside party, a third party outside.
Yeah, the township has a third-party actuary that works with it and provides updated information every single year so that they can fill out their MMO worksheet, which will actually be filling out in about a month and a half. So yeah, there is an actuary that says, hey, this is what we're looking at. And they receive direction from the township to get rid of it. So the township instructed them to say, we're no longer going to be paying that COLA.
So presumably it was not an oral instruction. I would just ask that this is something the council look at, sort of a forensic examination, because obviously we want the police to do their job and be paid and get a pension. Thank you.
Thank you.
So my name is Bill Clinton, and what I would like to do is, I was really struck by your presentation about the fire department, and the fact that when you said if all of these volunteers were paid, the price of that would be more than we now pay for police. Do I understand that correctly? Yeah. So I want to just acknowledge again the tremendous value that the fire department and all of its volunteers, including yourself, you're not a paid person. All the financial value that you're bringing to the community by doing what you're doing and being who you are. So I just, as one who has served on the council before, I didn't have a full appreciation of how valuable your contribution is. And I would say to everybody else in this, that this has been very helpful for me to better understand the finances of the community, and just as importantly, how we need to move forward from where we are in a situation, especially with the police and the small offices that you're trying to operate from, and what we need to do to step forward and be a community that's effectively meeting the needs of its residents. So I want to thank all of you for this presentation.
Are there any other questions or comments? Yes.
So, I don't know, this might be naive, but there's a lot of talent in our township. Yeah, I'm sorry. My name is Mary Clinton. I live at 440 Osage Lane. And I'm just wondering if there would be a possibility, either with volunteers from the community or even a small budget, to launch a PR program about the fire department, about the costs, and whether you could, entice more people. 28% is terrible. I'm really sad to hear that. And yeah, to volunteer too, not just to donate, but to get more volunteers. Okay.
Well, we would consider that. We have a very active and strong social media presence that we have ongoing with our website, Facebook, you name it. I have a whole committee just running that. But any input from residents that could help us out with that would be great. And here, as striking as those numbers were, and I asked my committee chairman, we have about 30 committees within the fire company. Fund drive is just one of them. When I asked her to put these statistics together, it threw me for a loop. And I have the backup because the company that does our fund drive, they keep all these statistics. But do you know what they told us? We're one of the top echelon at that percentage in the county. Now, isn't that sad? Think about that. 28%, they say, oh, that's great. Well, I don't think so. But again, I say to everyone here and on TV, if you're one of our dedicated donation people, thank you very much. We do appreciate it. Yes.
Also, you had mentioned regarding volunteers, one thing that we'd like to impress upon people, we're not only looking for firefighters. Of the 35 volunteers that Jim had mentioned, I would say 50% of them are administrative. We have many members that don't run fires. It takes an administrative side and a fire side. The administrative side is just as important in our fire company that the trucks get out on the street. So we will always want to emphasize, and we continue to emphasize with social media and always asking for volunteers. If you don't want to ride a fire truck, that is fine with us. We are still looking for volunteers and welcome anybody that can come up to our company and join and help us in any way that they can.
Sir.
Fred Reed, 28 Talkwoods Way. Chief, I want to thank you for everything you do for the township and your department. Guys, same thing with you. First time I'm meeting you, but I know you help us out. Dave, you do a hell of a job on highway. Okay, there you go. So the couple questions I have, you talk about the earned income tax. So what happens when somebody's at 1099? How do you collect that money? That's number one. Number two, is there any funding that the state can give you or a hospital help out with your ambulance? I know people get paid from their insurance company, but are you not seeing the money that the insurance company pays? Are they keeping it? What's happening there? I know you guys work your ass off at the fire department. You're here 2 nights a week. You're out on the calls. You do everything. No, but I'm saying your 2 nights that you have for your training and your meetings on top of everything else. I've been fortunate to live here for too many years. Got to know some of the police. They're great guys. Everybody in this township's great, but we have to keep the cost down. We have to look at how do we keep these up, but keep the cost down. We can't just keep increasing. I sat here last night, and the state rep wanted to tell me that townships should start to help SEPTA. Well, we can't afford to help SEPTA, okay? We have enough problems here to take care of ourselves. We don't have to worry about SEPTA, okay? I know people don't like to hear cuts, but something has to happen now. Can these projects be put into a long-term loan that if the township really needs it at a low interest rate? I I understand taxes go up, but something, and if you're going to put the earned income tax in, you got to do away with the township tax, 100%, not a percentage, 100%. There's my thoughts.
Are there any other questions or comments? Yes, sir.
Hello, my name's Justin Perry. I live at 216 Valley View Road. First and foremost, I want to thank the fire department, the police department. Excellent job you guys do. Keep up the good work. We support you. But there's some comments that I want to make, especially in regards to some of the budgeting. In particular, the way that the township council is spending some of our money. I definitely think you guys would be the first and ones that would need that support. But with things like hiring an assistant township manager that makes $70,000 a year, we never had an assistant township manager prior to that. Don't know why we need one now. It just seems to me like some people aren't able to do their job, and that they're spending frivolously. Like I heard one of our, and that's not in regards to the police and fire. But in regards to for example, we had Community Day. Well, last year it didn't happen because they didn't set a rain date. And I remember seeing how many signs are out there. And yes, some of these numbers are just drops in the bucket. But I do remember, 10 plus years ago, our roadways, our street getting repaved. Well, I don't know if there wasn't communication. I know that maybe the township doesn't necessarily control when our streets get paved, when they don't. But then 6 months later, the engineering department or whoever does our pipes came through and then had to mar up the road again. And so like that just seems like kind of like left hand doesn't know what the right hand is doing. And then the new permitting program. So we have the permit process that we currently have in place. Well, now the township wants to spend extra $10,000 or $130,000 for somebody to write a program so that people can go onto a website and then apply for a permit, as opposed to just, walking to the township building and applying for whatever permit it is that you want to do, whether it's a fence or, oh, I want to make sure my dog's registered. Those types of things, I think, are, and we do have to look at, I'm not saying that, hey, we need to take a closer look at some of the things that we're doing when it comes to rejuvenating Upper Providence. I think Upper Providence is very beautiful as it is. Not saying some things don't need to get done, but I think the council has to take a good hard look at that. And we look at our volunteer fire department. You guys do a great job. One of my neighbors is a former chief of the fire department, and he was always going out on calls. I'd always see the truck there, and coming and going and doing the work that needs to be done. But when we looked at you guys are all volunteer. Well, I know our township council doesn't make that much money, but even that's a drop in the bucket. Why are they getting paid when you guys are really the ones out there doing the hard work? That maybe we need to take a hard look at that too. And they're not making much. Maybe last time I checked a few years ago, it was probably like $2,500 per person. Well, maybe they shouldn't be getting paid. And just looking at that, just looking at some of these things and just maybe making some cuts where it needs to be, but obviously supporting our police, supporting the fire, and supporting, the necessities that need to get done. And like I said, I think that's important. That doesn't mean that, oh, now, well, the police are going to come and start, ticketing everybody all of a sudden for those types of things. So I know a little bit
Thank
of
you.
a rant, but
Thank you
very much.
Are there any other questions or comments? Okay, let's wrap it up here. Kristen, do you want to? Thanks to everybody for coming tonight.
Yes, we really want to thank everyone for coming out, our esteemed panel. This is really your local government at work. And I want to thank them for their time this evening to come and talk to you, tell you what they do, what they need in order to continue to grow our community, to be a place where we want to live, where we can meet all of our demands that we have, that we want to grow into. So again, this is all recorded. It'll be available online. There's an open forum that'll be open through July 31st. You can go on, you can leave your comments or questions. We're going to put them all together and we'll do an FAQ. And I think that's it, right? All right. Thank you, everyone.